is March 17th. Today is after the mid-month, if we can refer to like that. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. Thank you very much for choosing to begin your day with us right here on a Lookuptv. We don't have a lot packed for you today on Friday. It's the time that we sit back on this Friday and just entertain ourselves, go back and unwind on what has been a long week that has ended then with the president, that is President William Ruto, finally unveiling the biggest CAS list that we've ever seen in this government then in government since former retired President Uhuru Kenyatta introduced these particular positions. Now, two ways to think about it. This is just a reward position, but we've seen the return into government of faces that have risen to even governor positions. Case in point, Evans Kidero is back. We do have Kate Waruguru, who's also back. Millicent Omanga is back in that position as well. So when we look at exactly what the talking points are, you gotta look at it and critique from this particular perspective, because then the office of the deputy president has 3 CASs, mainly Ms. Anne Wanjiku Mwangi, Mr. Nicholas Rioba, and Mr. Edwin Sudi Wandubosi, who's also a CAS in that particular position. Again, we have 3 CASs in the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, that is Musalia Mudavadi's office. We do have Sharif Athman Ali, we have Isaac Mwaura Maigua, and Rahema Hassan. Now, these are the ones that took really the biggest chunk of those. Another that got a lot of CASs is the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, where we don't have Millicent Omanga, that is Nyaboke Omanga, and we don't have Samuel Kuntai Tunui and Muhammad Ali Saleh. Now, these are the ones that have taken the bigger chunk in CAS positions, where we saw 3 of them in that particular office. It was the first time that we're actually seeing this, because if you remember then former retired President Uhuru Kenyatta's appointments, they gave us probably 1 or 2 in this particular offices. This is the largest yet, which takes that number to 50, also showcasing just how Dr. President William Ruto was struggling then to award his loyalists, sort of creating positions for them to plug in, all the way to the National Treasury and Economic Planning, getting 2 CASs as well. Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, 2 CASs. Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action, 2 CASs. Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development also gets 2 CASs. Ministry of Information, Communications and Digital Economy gets 2 CASs as well. Ministry of Health gets 2 CASs. Ministry of Education, 3 CASs. Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, we have 2 CASs. Ministry of Investments, Trade and Industry, we have 3 CASs. Ministry of Cooperatives, Micro Small Enterprises Development, we have 2 CASs. Ministry of Youth Affairs, Arts and Sports, which saw the return of Charles Njagwa Kanyi, has 2 CASs. Ministry of Climate Change and Forestry, 2 CASs. Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage, 2 CASs. And then we have Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, 2 CASs. Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, 2 CASs. And the Ministry of African Community, EAC, also has 2 CASs. Ministry of Mining, Economic and Maritime Affairs, 2 CASs. Those are the ministries that then took the majority of those appointments by Dr. President William Ruto. Another talking point when you're looking at this CASs then is that one CAS, to run one particular office for the CAS, is going to cost around 2.5 million shillings per month. for one CIS, because from there you're looking at the security detail, you're looking at the vehicles, you're looking at the various allowances and running their offices as well. Remember, they also come with their assistants and personal secretaries. So in one office now, for example, now the office of let's take an example of the Ministry of Interior and National Administration. Now here you have the CS who comes with a PA and also a team around him. Then you have the PS who comes with a PA and a team around him as well. Then you have three CIS, who also come with the PAs and teams around them as well. We also say the secretaries of the secretaries. That's exactly how you look at it. So in this particular office, just on a specific outlook, you will say then that Mohammed Ali Saleh is going to have an assistant, something to Millicent Omanga, something to Samuel Tanui. So these three already have attracted 6 that you're looking at. Could be 8, depending on exactly how they look at it. And then you have the CS and the PS who would also attract maybe 3 working around them, meaning that this particular one could have upwards of 12 government officials employed to run affairs side by side, which essentially means that for the next 5 years, Kenyans could be spending upwards of 13 billion just to accommodate the 50 CISs that have been appointed by President Dr. William Ruto. Question, before we begin morning drift this morning. For a government that has said they are going to go deep into austerity measures then, to cut down national expenditure by 300 billion, yes, you might say that this appointment would then account for a meager portion of the recurrent expenditure in this country. The question is going to be, for Dr. President William Ruto, a man who's coming up preaching the wine of less expenditure, less borrowing, less money to unimportant projects in the country, shouldn't he be the one leading in these austerity measures? And if indeed then we're talking about cutting down by 300 billion, where is this cutback going to be found if you're spending another 13 billion in 5 years on the 50 CISs? What for thought? Talk to us at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am at Kiage Simba. Let's cross into the newsroom then, so we can get to show you the biggest headlines that you are waking up to this morning, as much as news are concerned. Welcome back. Now, this morning, President William Ruto nominated 50 chief administrative secretaries to serve in different ministries in his government. This is after they successfully went through interviews conducted by the Public Service Commission 2 weeks ago. The nominees will now be vetted by the National Assembly before appointment by the President on retender reports.
In the list by Head of Public Service Felix Koskei, President William Ruto has recommended for appointment 15 names of men and women to fill Chief Administrative Secretaries' positions in various ministries. President Ruto has rewarded his confidence and seasoned politicians, including Bishop Margaret Wanjiru, appointed CAS Ministry of Cooperatives, former Nairobi Women Rep aspirant Millicent Omanga, who has been nominated CAS Interior. ICT Guru Dennis Itumbi has been nominated CAS ICT. Evans Odhiambo Kidero in the Ministry of Trade. Former Starehe constituency Member of Parliament Charles Njagwa is the CAS nominee in the Ministry of Youth Affairs, Art and Sports. Isaac Mwaura, if approved, will serve in the office of Chief Cabinet Secretary, while Catherine Waruguru will serve in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as former NAT Secretary General Wilson Sossion takes his position as CAS Ministry of Tourism. Office of the Deputy President has been allocated 3 CAS, namely Anne Wanjiku Mwangi, Nicholas Ngabiya Rioba, and Edwin Sudi Wandabusi. Likewise, the Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary has received 3 CAS who include Sharif Athman Ali, Isaac Mwaura Maigwa, and Rehema Hassan. 3 ministries of Interior, Education and Investments, Trade and Industry have each been allocated 3 CAS. In the Ministry of Interior, President Ruto has nominated for appointment Samuel Kuntai Tunai, Millicent Nyaboke Omanga and Mohamud Ali Saleh. Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry will be served by former Nairobi Governor Evans Kidero, Vincent Kemosi Mogaka and Lilian Cheptoo Tomitom. While in Education, the President has nominated Eli Stephen Oldepe, Mark Lomunokol and Annab Mohamed. 17 ministries have been allocated 2 CAS each. These include Foreign Affairs, National Treasury, Roads and Transport, Public Works, Lands, ICT, Health, Agriculture, Mining and Blue Economy, ESCV, Assets and Regional Development, Labor, Energy and Petroleum, Water and Irrigation, Tourism and Wildlife, Environment, Cooperatives, Youth Affairs, Art and Sports. Famous journalists who were gunning for the CAS positions and did not make the cut include Linda Ogutu, Mwanaisha Chizuga, and Boniface Musambi. The CAS nominees will now wait for Parliament vetting before they start their work officially. Henry Tende, Lookuptv.
As it is, does not recognize the position of a Cabinet Assistant Secretary. So, in a nutshell, the National House would have to dig deep to find a leeway for them to then go in and vet these nominees to those CAS positions. It's going to make for an interesting conversation from the opposition side in Parliament, because then why would they vet them when the law, as it is, doesn't recognize a CAS position? So would it be illegal business in the House once these names then move to Parliament for vetting? Moving on. The cholera death toll has risen to 6 in Machakos Health Executive Daniel Yumbia has now said. Yumbia said they included 4 cases that occurred in Mavoko sub-county last week and 2 other cases registered in Kangundo. Abigail Shira reports.
It is a sorry state of affairs as the numbers of people who have succumbed to cholera gets to 6 in Machakos County. This number was confirmed as of 6th March 2023, raising a concern from the Ministry of Health and the county government. According to the report released by the Machakos County Health Department, Mavoko, Matungulu and Kangundo sub-counties have reported such cases, with 46 out of 51 cases reported in the county coming from Mavoko.
Starts at 46, but 46 in Mavoko and 3 in Kangundo, total 51 persons. And the admissions, as we speak now, we have discharged all the patients. We are remaining with 6, 3 in Mavoko, level 4 hospital, and 2 in Machakos, level 5.
The county administration has since raised an alarm for need to reinforce the ban of food hawking in Athi River town that was put in place last week.
We extended the ban of hawking up to Tuesday next week. But as I said, this was because yesterday there were 2 cases, and upon consultation with Her Excellency and the Cabinet, we resolved that we extend the ban up to Tuesday next week.
In a rejoinder, residents are advised to take caution of what they eat and observe hygiene.
Continue washing their hands, drink safe water, avoid defecation and use toilets, and ensure they cook their food thoroughly.
Abigail Shira, Lookuptv.
Members of the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union, alongside other health sector unions, have decried delay in payment of salaries in the month of February by counties. This is opposed to the commitment made by the Council of Governors to pay workers not later than a 5th as a change from the perennial salary delays in the past, with workers going for more than 3 months without pay. Now, the issue was seen as doctors threatened to down their tools.
According to the union, health workers have been faced with myriads of challenges in the last 10 years as most county governments have failed to prioritize their welfare. The health workers were alerted concerning the delay in the month of February in a circular.
We don't need to have disruption of services because money meant for paying workers in the counties has not been sent to the counties or to the workers. And whatever it is between the county governments and national government that may make it to have delays in disbursement, I think it's a time that the Treasury can come with a mechanism and a framework to ensure that just the same way we have TSC paying teachers on time, the same way we have Judicial Service Commission paying magistrates and judges on time, the same way we have Police Service Commission paying police on time without delays, the same way national government pay all the workers mid-month, it's high time that the healthcare workers in the county be fed some dignity in terms of their salary payments.
The matter is believed to have been compounded by delays in the disbursement of money to counties. According to the union, salary delays have pushed health workers into untold suffering due to hardship leading to depression among some medics.
Majority of workers, healthcare workers in the counties, are faced with non-payment of statutory deductions. That means they can't access even the care that they're giving. Now the loans and the loaning institutions are following healthcare workers left, right, and centers. The healthcare workers are receiving a lot of warnings and information from the landlords regarding the continuous delay in payments of their rent.
The National Treasury is yet to release disbursement for the month of February, which has allegedly occasioned the delay. Health officers have continued to call on Treasury to approach an amicable solution so as to put an end to the matter. Cecilia Lubanga, Lookuptv.
Leaders of the Azimio la Umoja Bwana Kenya coalition on Thursday stormed Nakuru County, part of President William Ruto's Rift Valley home turf, warning foreign countries against interfering with Kenya's affairs. Now, this comes ahead of the planned March 20th walk to State House, a protest against what has been termed as an illegitimate government being pushed by the Azimio leader Raila Odinga and a cohort.
Resolution of Nakuru People's Baraza, March 16th, 2023. The march on Nairobi is on. In 4 days' time, we have a march on Nairobi that kicks off an unprecedented campaign of defense of Mr. William Ruto and his illegitimate regime. It is only fair that before we take this next step, we spell out our case against Mr. Ruto as follows. The price of unga, of cooking oil, petrol, diesel, and even school fees imepanda.
Kupigania haki ya wananchi wa Kenya. Tutaenda kwa sababu huyu bwana Ruto anasema ati maandamano hayatakuwa ya amani. Nataka hapa tuchukue kiapo kwamba sisi wa Kenya tutaandamana kwa maandamano ya amani tupu. Wangapi wanasema hivyo? Yule ataleta ghasia, huyo sio mwananchi sawa sawa. Mwenye kuleta ghasia, huyo hana njaa. Yule mwenye njaa ataenda aketi chini kwa barabara wiki moja, wiki mbili, mpaka Ruto na watu wake wasikilize.
Now, with the dollar currently rating at 145 shillings, the situation is expected to worsen if proper measures are not put in place. This is according to the managing partner, AMG Capital, George Munga. Ian Ketani now reports.
As the country battles the high cost of living, the situation is expected to worsen as the Kenyan shilling continues to deteriorate against the dollar, which now trades at 145, despite different figures being fronted by the Central Bank of Kenya. According to the managing partner at AMG Capital, George Munga, the weakening of the shilling has been brought about by several factors, top among them increased pressure and over-dependence on importation.
There has been supply chain disruptions all the way from COVID times. You remember when COVID struck, there was disruptions in the world trade and supply chain. And when COVID eventually subsided, there was a lot of pressure for traders to try and catch up. Meaning there was an increased pressure for importation for most of the economies around the world. The economy has not been very stable. That trace goes even before the 2022 elections. Already there was a lot of pressure on our debt repayment. Remember, in November last year, the government was not able to meet its dollar obligations for loan repayment. They had to defer, I think, around $699 million repayment that was due then.
Just what will be the effect of the weakening shilling on the economy?
Today we were importing petrol, say at $60 a barrel, and tomorrow we do at $80 a barrel. Then that essentially go into your pump price, meaning the cost of petrol will increase by a similar margin. That is why you've seen the cost of fuel increase from all the way from November on a month-on-month basis. And of course, when the price of energy increases, the price of energy, let me put it that way, increases, then it affects the common mwananchi almost immediately. The cost of raw materials that we import to be able to manufacture our day-to-day goods that we consume increases.
This comes as the Treasury Principal Secretary Chris Kipto insists that there is enough dollar in the country despite the low circulation.
If things were to remain the way they are, then the shilling is likely to slide even lower. I was telling you that our forecast is that the shilling might go to 150, 160 if nothing was done between now and June.
If the government does not find proper interventions in place, what will be the situation of the shilling?
Remember, we closed the year when the dollar was around 116, 117, and within 3 months we are trading at around 142 today. I think some banks are quoting 142 today, and we forecast as people who play in that space that the dollar might go all the way to 150 or 160 by June this year. That is if the government doesn't intervene.
Even as the government plans to import oil from Saudi Arabia using the Kenyan shilling, Munga insists that it is a strategic move and it will help in stabilizing the situation.
If we are able to get a country, an oil-producing country that can sell us oil, and they accept payments and other means other than the USD, then of course we'll ease pressure on the demand for USD.
According to Munga, one of the ways to ensure that the situation gets better is through floating for another Eurobond, although it might not be a long-term solution.
If they go out there and secure maybe another Eurobond, the only challenge I would have is at what rate will they get those finances to be coming into the economy. What that does is that it is able now to cushion the Kenya shillings from the day-to-day fluctuations.
Ian Keitani, Lookuptv.
The previous administration is on the spot yet again for approving a 6 billion Kenyan shillings for Telkom Kenya buyout in the run-up to last year's general election. As Shadrach Karere reports, the Parliamentary Departmental Committee on Finance has proposed to summon former key leaders in the previous administration, including former Treasury CS Okur Yatani.
It's not in order.
The 6 billion Kenyan shilling scandal that took place during the final days of the previous administration has continued to attract the attention of Kenyans as the Parliamentary Finance Committee continues to dig deeper into the matter.
Who communicates, who writes letters on behalf of National Security Council? The Secretary of the National Security Council is the head of public service.
On Thursday, the committee was set to hear from the management of Jamhuri Holding Company, who failed to appear. The company is said to have entered into an agreement with the last administration, where it is said to have received 6.1 billion shillings after allegedly selling telecom companies' shares to the government.
That is the opening chapter. That is the gateway, the beginning. So I also agree.
As a way of getting to the root of the matter, the committee proposed to summon key leaders who served during President Uhuru Kenyatta's tenure.
The person that makes the decision that we acquire this Because if you want, someone wants to exit, you can get any buyer. Even Safaricom can buy or another company. But the partner called Republic of Kenya decided that we buy it. Who is the Republic of Kenya? Where is the decision of the Republic of Kenya decided? It is decided in the cabinet chaired by the president.
Some of the big names suspected to have been part of the deal include the former head of public service Joseph Kinyua, former CS for Treasury Ukuri Atani, and Joe Mucheru, who served at the CS for ICT.
This is not complete, minus the DG Communication Authority. There is a provision, I'm sure our lawyers will guide us, that you cannot alter the shareholding of any ICT, any telecommunication company without the approval of Communication Authority.
Chairman, you don't want to look at that side? That is the genesis. And Chairman, this Republic of Kenya call a partner who submits matters of, when the cabinet sits like in this table, who submits to the cabinet on that matter of telecom sale? Cabinet Secretary for ICT. And in that particular case, at that time, the holder of that office is one Musheru.
The committee argues that there is possibility that more money was spent on the deal that has never come to pass.
And that is why, for me, what appears here is that Jamhuri Holdings were basically fleeing a burning platform.
The business agreement between Jamhuri Holding and the government shows that the state did not only pay the cash, but also covered the company against any lawsuit.
So we did not just go ahead and pay, we indemnified Jamhuri Holdings from any judicial or any other government authority inquiry, whatever it is, on this particular matter.
Shadrack Kareria, Lookuptv.
Well, those investigations do continue, and those are some of the stories that we should be keeping a tabs right here on Lookuptv. Remember, majority of the stories are also covered online at www.lookuptv.co.ke. Once you're there, a comment and a like on the stories that you get on the website will be much appreciated. And also, majority of the stories actually that do not make it on the air also make it on a YouTube platform. That is at Lookuptv on YouTube, on Facebook. A subscription and a like of the content that you find there will also be way much appreciated. We take a tiny breather right here on the morning drift. Once we come back, a look at what is going on in your dailies this morning.
We are married since 1978.
Nani alianzisha kurusha mistari ndio finally you are now here?
Ni mimi nilianza.
Aliponizungumzia nikasikia ndani huko kitu karukaruka.
I said in my marriage mke wangu hataona mangumi na makofi na mateke.
Wasichana wengi ama wamama wengi ama wake wengi wanachapwa saa hizi kwa sababu ya hao kujibisa wazee midomo.
Love is not conditional. Simpendi kwa sababu amefanya kila kitu, lakini nampenda kwa sababu natakiwa nimpende.
Utachagua sura au tabia unapotaka kumchumbia mwanamke?
Anaweza kuwa mrembo lakini hana tabia.
Naweza jifanya ndio hata kama hapa sitapata, nipate kwa tabia.
Ukweli wa mambo ni kwamba wanaume wengi, hata wale ambao wanatutazama wakati huu, ni sura inawavutia mara ya kwanza.
Ukiona mwanaume anasema ule dem ako poa, ule dem, hafikirii future na huyo dem. Huyu mwenye ako poa, anapendeza, anakaa vizuri,
wacha kutudanganya.
Wajua waweza kuwa na tabia nzuri lakini ikabadilishwa na hali. Kanisani wanja ndugu yangu waimba
Lakini-
kwaya wakishuka wakipanga
Unajua-
masika na hao mandugu hawawachukui.
Lazima nikae na wewe kwa muda fulani.
Mm.
Nikusome, nikujue kindani sana.
Kuna uchunguzi wa aina mbili ndugu yangu, kuna uchunguzi wa polisi na wa CID. Kama kuna mtu ambaye ana ujuzi wa hali ya juu ya kujifanya na
mwanamke.
kukusoma akili yako na kukufanya wewe uamini kile unachotaka kutoka kwake, ni mwanamke.
Online at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am at Kiage Simba. This is the morning drift. Let's then at this particular point take a couple minutes and look at what is trending on your dailies this morning. I'm going to start with the Standard this morning so that we can get to see what the bigger headlines are there. As expected, what has been given priority on the newspapers this morning is the CSS appointment. I don't know if we have that particular publication so we can get to look at the headline together. And I hear they're saying no lane government as 50 join cabinet. All right, that's on the Standard. And they're saying that the president has presented 50 names to Parliament for consideration of the position of Chief Administrative Secretary, whom, if approved, will push the number of senior government officials to 125. You really need to get into deeper details of that particular story. Then you have to go all the way up to page 4. But just on a snapshot then, so we can get to see exactly what the comparisons are. And here, William Ruto's, President Uhuru Kenyatta's CISs versus Ruto's CISs. Let's look at it. Under Uhuru, we had 20 CISs. Ruto has 24 cabinet secretaries. Uhuru had 44 principal secretaries to the various state ministries. Ruto has 51, so an additional 7, and CISs an additional 4. Now, cabinet assistant secretaries, that is administrative secretaries, Uhuru had 29, but now that's why the doors came down crumbling, because Ruto has presented 50, an additional 21 to those names. See where we are. That would essentially push then state government senior officials to 125, which is way beyond what the previous administration, in which Dr. President William Ruto was a key leader, was part of. That's where the conversation begins. Key names that we're seeing here, and that appointment, we do have Dennis Itumbi, who's now CIS, Ministry of ICT, Margaret Wanjiru, Cooperatives, Sosion is going into Tourism and Wildlife, Charles Njagwa is going to Youth and Sports. We do have Charles Momalo, who's gone to Water and Sanitation, and a lot of key appointments like Margaret Wanjiru, who's now gone into Cooperatives, and SMEs Isaac Mwaura, like we've covered this morning, who went into the office of the Prime CS. That's exactly how they look, this appointment. And by the way, you can read that story all the way to page 4, just to grab you a snapshot of whatever it is that they're talking about here. Now, they're saying President William Ruto's promise of a lean and efficient government was broken after he nominated 50 election losers and loyalists to his cabinet. Now, the president yesterday, in the last of his major constitution of his government, dished out key positions to 50 politicians who had flopped in last year's election. Saying that the list of the CSs mirrors every role the politicians played in helping the president win the August election. That's just a snapshot of exactly how this particular story looks. All right, there's a bigger one as well. If you look at the front page of the Standard as well, there is on page 7 on how Raila has said he's going to sue Ruto over an 82 coup remarks. If you go back to page 7 of that particular story, here's the thing. Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga has said that he will sue President William Ruto over claims that he was involved in the 1982 coup. He was speaking at Mazembe Ground yesterday in Nakuru City during the Azimio Public Baraza. Raila said he was cleared of treason charges instituted against him. And I would like to quote him. He's saying, I was charged with treason and I stayed in prison for 6 months. I was taken to court, but in the end, the government failed to prove the case against me. That is according to Raila. So you wonder whether the president can actually be sued. That is a conversation we'd like to pick right here. And stick around, because on Monday, that's when we get talk about current affairs. So it'll be quite interesting to see exactly when and if this will stand the test of times. Pretty much, that's exactly what the major stories on the Standard are this morning. Again, the bigger news about how tractors now are brought back to life as farmers get down to work. It looks as if the rainy period is back in the country. Read that story on page 3 of the Standard this morning. They're saying that for months, farmers watched their farms turn into dry lands and livestock drop dead due to drought that hit the country. But in the last few days, clouds have been gathering, marking the return of the long-awaited rains. Farmers in most counties are returning to their farms before they miss out on the rains, which the weatherman says can only sustain crops that mature early. As exactly what it is. Again, if you're in the capital of Nairobi, our perennial problem every time we have rains, despite the leader that we have on the ground, is that right now Nairobi has turned into a swimming pool. There's a story here on page 3 of the Standard that says that heavy rains have exposed clogged drainage systems in Nairobi. That when it rains, it pours. This was true for many city residents following a heavy downpour that was witnessed Wednesday night all the way into Thursday in the morning. After several months of a dry spell, the rains that lasted more than 9 hours stretched to Thursday midday in some parts of the city. Now, what Nairobians experienced was a problem that doesn't seem to go away. The rains, then we have to look for gumboots, and you have to get ready to jump, because indeed Nairobi turns into a swimming pool. If you walk around Nairobi, you'll see some streets, by the way, in as much as it has not rained this morning, that some roads are still under the water. All right, hopefully it's not so bad where you are. On your way to work this morning, on the back page of the Standard, yeah, you do know that officially then Liverpool is out of the Champions League. And they're calling it, is this an end of Klopp's successful team at Liverpool, all right? Because the aggregate ended at 6-2 in the return leg that they lost to Real Madrid at Bernabeu. And it wasn't so much that they could do, actually. They're out. Good. Now, the teams that are in the quarterfinals, and we're going to know what fixtures are going to be like. We do have Bayern, Benfica, Chelsea, Inter Milan, Man City, AC Milan, Napoli, Real Madrid. What do you think is going to win? Talk to us right here at Lookuptv. All right, let's move into the next paper that we have for you this morning. And I do have the Daily Nation. Good. We can get to look at what that is like this morning. Again, same, really. Let's see whether they have a different view of the CSs who have been appointed by the president. They're saying loyalists top, Ruto's blotted CAS lineup. It's just a copy and paste really in terms of the view, and you could actually see the pictures right there. Again, wall covered. Now this is quite important, and they're asking, I want us to read it together. If you look at the headline just next to Ruto right there, they're saying, what austerity? You say, is a man who came to office saying that we have to take deep austerity measures as a government if we're going to stop over expenditure, especially under recurrent expenditure. There's a man who came in saying he doesn't understand how a government is quite bloated, but then he has 50 CASs now, which points out to a man trying to find a way to reward his loyalists. Some pictures that we kept on showing you this morning. Again, now you see under this notable names that have been included there is Margaret Wanjiru. Again, we do have Evans Odhiambo Kidero, Charles Njagwa, Isaac Mwaura. Under that, Waruguru, who goes to Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. We do have a Chrysanthus Wamalwa, who goes to Water Sanitation and Irrigation. Mashetani, who goes to Ministry of Health. Correo, who goes to Youth Affairs, Arts and Sports. So Sioni would like to think he would have gone to Education, but then he finds himself as a CAS under Tourism. Now, this is where the conversation point starts. CAS Deputy President of Office, we have 3. That is Anne Wanjiku, Nicholas Ngabia Robia, and Edwin Sudi Wandabusi. All right, that's why exactly we're talking about. Same pictures that have been shown on the Daily Nation this morning. And if you look at Cabinet Secretary Office, again, look at that. We have, that is under Chief Cabinet Secretary. That is Musalia Mudavadi CASs. We have Sharif Adman Ali, Isaac Mwaura, and we have Rehema Hassan also getting free. Sort of telling you exactly that this is President William Ruto really trying to look for a way to even award the allies or the close allies to Musalia Mudavadi and Rigathi Gachagua, which is why the Daily Nation is asking this morning, what austerity? Again, look at this, Ministry of Interior, we have 3 of them as well. Hon Samuel Kuntai Tunai, Millicent Nyaboke Omanga, and Mohammed Ali Saleh, again, representing what is a bloated government, really. Now, let's read this kicker right here on the Daily Nation. This is what exactly, if we can go back to the front page of that paper, so we can actually get to see that question. And this is what they're saying. President William Ruto added another burden to the taxpayers by increasing the number of nominees for the position of Chief Administrative Secretary from 23 to 50, creating the largest executive in recent history. The list comprises mainly politicians who lost in the general election last year. I want us to jump into pages 4 and 5 this morning, because that's exactly where you're going to get this. And this is what they're saying, that the nation has learned that the State House had initially asked the Public Service Commission, PSC, to create 20... Now listen, it's very important as you read this particular one. They're saying that the nation learned that the State House had initially asked the Public Service Commission, PSC, to create 23 CAS posts, which have now risen to 50, signaling competing political interests that saw the shortlist at one point reopened to accommodate more applicants. I'm going to read that again, if you don't have it, that State House initially asked the Public Service Commission, that is President Dr. William Ruto, because we were saying the State House, all right, that he asked for only 23. But then people say, no, we got to get positions as well. That's why now, out of those 23, an additional 27 was created. So PSC was actually under pressure to accommodate all these ones, telling you exactly what was going on in the background. That's somebody saying, well, where is my position as well? Can't go in, because it's either now or never, because those state appointments that are being made by President William Ruto, this is the last round of them. Well, of course, we're going to see a change probably in ambassadors into various countries, but this shows you exactly where we are. Now, listen, now the CASs, this is where it starts to meet the the road, yeah? Now, the 50 CISs, whom President William Ruto wants to act as the liaison between the ministries and parliament, as well as counties, will cost, now listen, 460 million shillings annually in salaries, totaling to 2.3 billion in 5 years. Now, PSC has classified CIS under CSG3, which is equivalent to Job Group 5, making them entitled to a monthly salary of, wait for it, 765,188 shillings. Whoa. All right. Now, listen, the CISs, like principal secretaries, are also entitled to 35 million shillings mortgage. All right. We've got to talk about that. And a 10 million shillings car grants, that is around 8 million for PSs, both of which will cost the taxpayer 2.25 billion in a one-off payments over 5 years. So a PS gets an 8 million car grant, but a CAS gets a 10 million car grant. So I ask, who's more qualified for that job? Is it the CAS or the PS? So now we can get to attract more in car grants. Anyway, you can get to read all the way to that, because for cabinet secretaries, we have to pay them 924,000 in monthly salaries, and 40 million on mortgage, and 10 million on car loan, and 17.18 million in gratuity once they are out of office. Just a lot of details that would really go into this to ask the question, really? Did we need this? 50 of them? All right, let's go back to the front page again, because there's a bigger story here on how Raila says that he won't be intimidated to call off protests. And that's saying that Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition leader Raila Odinga yesterday stopped Nakuru, part of President William Ruto's stronghold, for an anti-government rally. He addressed the ground and then set the stage for the March 20th protests that the government has so been against. All right, on security on page 12, you're going to read about how the government has increased its firepower, including artillery, in 6 targeted counties from Monday. And the story that we've covered this morning on how Musheru and the attorney have been summoned over the telecom buyout deal. They said 6 billion that went nowhere. Read that story on page 6. And it's a win for teachers in disciplinary cases, because teachers have secured a majority victory in court after a judge nullified decisions made by disciplinary panels that were not chaired by a member of the Teachers Service Commission. Read that story on page 3 as well. In here, that's the same story that has been covered by the Daily Nation. And indeed, on the back page, you're going to find how then salary woes have hit universities as Treasury withholds cash. Now, public universities are unable to pay staff due to delays by National Treasury to release funds, precipitating a crisis in learning institutions. That story has been covered in depth at the back page of the Daily Nation. Quick, to have the Business Daily here this morning, just one or two headlines on whatever it is they're talking about on the Business Daily. They're talking about gold price. The Kenya stock market hits historic highs, and this is coming at a time when indeed majority of the marquee stocks, we're talking about the blue chip companies on the Kenyan stock, have been on a negative. I mean, if you look at the NSE 20 share index all the way up to the NSE 25, it is on the negative. And yesterday, KCB were releasing their results, if you did follow that, and majority of investors did not like how the payout has come down, because, well, KCB didn't have a reason to say that, because they're struggling within what seems to be a dollar crisis in the country, which is squeezing their profits. But then they're saying, well, that's the way it is. The economy has not been propped up. All the way from Safaricom, the likes of KCB, the likes of EABL. If we look at the particular stocks, then they are on a low. All right, we talk about that. Now, you do know exactly what is in your newspapers this morning. Remember, majority of the stories, again, have been covered right here on our website. That is www.lookuptv.co.ke. Part of those stories that you are going to read are some of the stories that we've seen here today on a newspaper review. Make sure now you grab yourself a copy this morning and get to dig deep into the stories that we've highlighted right here on your daily review. For me, we take a tiny breather. Once we come back, then we officially come back to E-Friday. Well, we take back. It's been a long week of news and the blessings, by the way, I might say that, of rain. Take back and jump into our music interlude right here on E-Friday. My name is Simba Kiage. I'll see you when you see me. That's what they say, isn't it? Online at Lookuptv, across all your social media platforms. I am at Kiage Simba. Good morning.
Worship be released from your lips tonight. Come on, raise it now. Oh, that's good, y'all. Raise it, raise it.